Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to talk about the Rule 19, conduct of vessels in restricted visibility. Okay, let's start straight in with the first paragraph. These rules apply to vessels not in sight of one another when navigating in or near an area of restricted visibility. So this sentence is kind of obvious, needs to be restricted visibility, which is defined in Rule 3 of course. But your own vessel does not need to be in it. If you are approaching another vessel which is not restricted visibility, Rule 19 will still apply. B. Every vessel shall proceed at a safe speed adapted to the prevailing circumstances and conditions of restricted visibility. A power-driven vessel shall have her engines ready for immediate maneuver. Start to talk about safe speed, which is actually covered in Rule 6, but this paragraph B, Rule 19, reinforce it and says you need to proceed at a safe speed adapted to restricted visibility, and a power-driven vessel shall have our engine ready for immediate maneuver. So it is one of the few rules that actually direct you exactly what you have got to do with your engines. You need to be ready to maneuver immediately. C. Every vessel shall have due regard to the prevailing circumstances and condition of restricted visibility when complying with these rules of Section 1 of this part. It is just similar to B and says you need to have due regard to restricted visibility when complying with the rules of Section 1 of this part. So not only are we talking about safe speed, but also talking about lookout risk of collision action to avoid collision, narrow channels, and traffic separation schemes. Paragraph D wanted the actual action that we need to be talking. A vessel which detects by the radar alone the presence of another vessel shall determine if a close quarter situation is developing and or risk of collision exists. If so, she shall take avoiding action in ample time, providing that when such action consists of an alteration of course, so far as possible the following shall be avoided. Of course, we are using radar because we can see anything. You need to determine if a close quarter situation is developing and if risk collision exists. And if you are going to alter course, you need to try and avoid these. It doesn't tell you you cannot reduce speed, indeed a speed alteration, a reduction in speed that might be the best course of action. If you alter course, you need to avoid the following: an alteration of course to port for a vessel forward to the beam other than for a vessel being overtaken. So basically means you've got to come to starboard for vessel forward of the beam unless you are overtaking them. And part, an alteration of course toward a vessel, a beam of above the beam. So if they are above the beam on your port side, you need to alter away to them around the starboard above the beam. On the starboard side, you have got to alter away from them around to port. So let's have a look at a couple of examples.
So this time we're going to be looking at a radar plot. Of course we can't do a normal situation because we cannot see the other vessel. It's all going to be on the radar screen. For ease of reference, I'm going to divide our screen into 4 sectors. Of course, everything forward of the beam is in the top 2 halves and everything abaft the beam is in the bottom 2 halves. Right, so what happens if we detect a target out on the starboard side? It's forward of the beam and it's out to starboard. We've got to make an alteration of course to starboard because we need to avoid an alteration of course to port for a vessel forward of the beam. Likewise, if it's out on the port side forward of the beam, getting closer still, we've got to alter our course to starboard because we need to avoid an alteration of course to port. And then if the target is astern of us, this time out on the port quarter, again, we'd alter away from it because we need to avoid an alteration of course towards it. So we alter to starboard again. And then the final quarter, out on the starboard quarter, if it's getting closer to us, we need to alter away from it. So this time we're going to come round to port. So this is the only one where we actually come to port. The rest of them we need to come to starboard. So we can have a look at all these together. Wherever the target is, unless it's out behind the beam on the starboard side, we need to alter our course to starboard. And if it's on our starboard quarter, we need to alter our course to port. Of course, the exception is if we're overtaking. So all this implies we have to do a radar plot, we need to determine everything, and if that tells us we are overtaking the vessel, then we're allowed to come to port for it if it's forward of the beam.
Except where it has been determined that a risk of collision does not exist, every vessel which hears apparently forward of her beam and fog signal of another vessel, or which cannot avoid a close quarter situation with another vessel forward of her beam, shall reduce her speed to the minimum of which she can be kept on her course. She shall, if necessary, take all her way of and in any event navigate with extreme caution until danger of collision is over. So only way we could have determined that is if we are done a radar plot. So if you hear a fog signal, and remember the ranges that we are talking about here are very largest ships, only have a ranges of 2 miles, and if they are sounding that signal once every minute, then it could have been a good amount of time and a good amount of distance between their last signal when you first heard them. They could be under 2 miles from you. Another, first of all, reduce your speed to the minimum. You can keep your course and then if necessary stop. Don't still need to be able to keep on your course, and you still need to be able to make those alterations. And it is only then that if it is necessary you take all the way off. But another, first of all, reduce your speed to the minimum. Can you keep your course and then if necessary stop. Don't just stop straight away. You didn't still need to be able to keep on your course, and you still need to be able to make those alterations. And it's only then that if it is necessary you take all way off, but you have always got to navigate with extreme caution until danger of collision is over. And that's bring us to the end of Rule 19.